This video is going to show you the solo on the final boss of the newly released dungeon, Spire of the Watcher, which is a big rival. There's 2 dungeon bosses in this one. I've already posted the first dungeon boss. There's other encounters apart from the bosses, but I like to focus the bosses first. Obviously there'll be more content to come. Obviously I'll go for the solo flaws, etc, etc. But right now I wanted to post my initial clears. Right, so I've done that with the first boss, which is a harpy. The second boss is a raven. So it's a Vex themed, right? So, providing that you know a little bit about the dungeon, just to explain, the whole dungeon's based on fuses and currents. Right, now, there's 2 different types of fuses at the final boss at least. There's the red ones that I'm shooting now, and there's the yellow ones. The red currents, you start with first. I was actually really weak there. There's no particular order that you shoot them in. You just shoot them, but you are timed. See, they work a little different to the yellow. Then see what the red fuse does is it opens up the door. So it opens up this extra room. This is where you need to concentrate on the yellow currents. Now, there's a route. There's 4 different routes. There's 4 pillars in the initial room, and 2 of them at any given time will be shut, 2 of them will be open. Think of it like Grasp of Avarice, when them the cannon hatch things are open and then closed. It's the same as that, but then that dictates the route, which current to go with. Now it's very hard to teach someone the route. I took a bit of time, I would say a good hour or so, to learn each route. Right, I wasn't even doing DPS, I was just learning, right, what's all these routes? It isn't a big deal if you lose your buff. Obviously, to get the buff, on the left hand side you can see the time at 23:22. It's off the Minotaurs. There's a Minotaur that spawns left and right. Now they're infinitely spawning them, right, just like Knights will be in Prophecy, etc. So, and they reset the time at 30 seconds, but you can go above 30 seconds, as you can see, when you're shooting fuses. So the quicker you are at this, the better your time is and all that stuff. But it isn't the end of the world if you mess up. Now this is boss DPS. After you've done the yellow currents, which is 2, you then have to do the 5 fuses for the red current again. Then boss DPS starts, because that opens up the door. So my DPS is Witherhoard, rocket, grenade, rocket, because it's a demo rocket, then super. Then after my super's expired, another rocket, and all that DPS will... I mean, it's not bad DPS, it's okay, it's fine. It doesn't look very good, but the short window of the boss, there's not a lot of time to do damage, right? Some other classes will be better than others at this particular boss fight because it heavily relies on your super. The strats aren't fully out, don't get me wrong. I've seen a couple of weapons being used. Sleepless seems decent in this. I'm not sure why, but it actually seems, I guess it's a good burst weapon. So Sleep is actually not a bad option in this. Obviously I've got Weakened Clear and Solo Operative, so those 2 stacked together. Plus I've got High Energy Fire. Obviously the Radiant is an option there as well, but I can't always have Radiant up. I mean you can if you leave more adds alive, but it wasn't exactly like that for me. Sometimes I was just clearing adds and stuff just for survivability purposes. So I've always got High Energy Fire to lean back on. And this will be a 6-phase fight anyways, right? If you're 5 or 4 phase in this fight solo, then you're doing extremely well, right? But as I said, for that, other subclasses might be better than others because the supers, like the Titan super, is really long. Apart from T-Crash, Thunder Crash, thing is with Thunder Crash is the survivability isn't the best on it for your neutral play, and that's what you've got to think of. It's not just boss DPS you need to think about, it's surviving the fight. But it's a 6-phase fight, 6-phase solo. Even I imagine some people might be even doing 7 or 8 phases. This might be one of the hardest dungeon bosses that they've made. The requirement for movement as well on the yellow on getting the yellow currents is quite a high demand. Like players who are a little bit slower than other players is going to struggle with that part. The yellow currents, not so much the red or maybe even boss damage they're fine with. It's getting that root down and remembering each fuse, because The game actually shows you where the next fuse is with the pipes if you actually look at them, right? But you haven't got time to, so you need to know in advance where you're going before you go there with the fuses in the second room. Like, so right now I know where these fuses are. It's when you get into the other room, some of the pipes are going under the platform and then coming over another cable, and it can be confusing to look at whilst you've got exploding harpies flying at you everywhere, ads, and the boss is constantly chasing you. You've got to have a good awareness of how long you've got before that boss collapses on you. You can bait the boss between the two rooms, which I recommend that you do that, so that when you're on your route for the yellow fuses, we'll call them the yellow ones, you've got that 5 to 6 seconds. 5 to 6 seconds is a long time when you're doing something like this. So if you get like 5-6 seconds of free time to shoot the fuses, that's a lot of time. Whereas 1 or 2 seconds isn't a lot, and the boss can be on top of you right away. So this is boss DPS phase 2. It's the same strat every time, right? Make sure obviously I'm on the floor when I pop super, so that way I get my sunspot. Don't pop your super in mid-air on hammers, like on the initial pop is what I mean. And then like I say, I'll do a rocket at the very end as well. This demo rocket works out well for this strat. Whatever rocket you're comfortable with, try a couple of rockets. It might take you a bit to get a playstyle going. Like I say, I tried Anarchy. Anarchy didn't do a good job in this. Like I tried doing an Anarchy setup with a special weapon. It wasn't doing enough burst damage, which this is what this fight requires. Really, is a good amount of burst damage. The ad spawns, which I haven't talked about too much, they are infinitely spawning when you haven't opened the door in this particular room. But then they'll stop spawning like they are now once you open room 2, but then they will spawn up in room 2. But the Minotaurs obviously will always be available to you because they are required for the mechanic to get you buff. For the current, you can do this in one thing, right? If you're good enough and efficient enough, you can do it in one attrition buff. Just going right across. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends on what happens at the time. But like you can see there, it's a river that I'm in. You know, I'm not thinking about what I'm going for because I've already seen that pattern. If you get me. Whereas if you're like, oh, I haven't seen this route before, or I can't remember, is it this left one or is this right one? You haven't got time to do that. So before you weren't even, I obviously haven't solo flawless yet, but learn each encounter to its maximum, to the point where you're really confident with it, right? You know what you're doing. That includes the first boss fight. The first boss fight isn't really threatening. The first boss fight, the Harpy, is boss DPS is the hardest thing. It's actually harder than this fight, I think, the damage on the Harpy boss. There's not a lot of room for a loadout, shall we say. It's linears. Linears are obviously the DPS kings, and they're even more so on that fight. On this fight, not so much, because the Riven is constantly coming to you, so a precision style weapon doesn't work that good. Sleepless seems to be alright, but in general, I see people using rockets on this fight, and I don't blame them, to be honest. That's what suited my playstyle, is using rockets on this fight, but obviously, certainly linear on the first fight. But it's all just routine and rhythm. We're on our next phase of damage, and that's really all there is to the fight, so I won't commentate on the whole run, just because it is the same thing over and over. But the biggest thing is just to compose it and just to sort of know that if you do something, you don't have to commit to it, because you can go back and get the buff at any time. So if you miss a fuse, or you're halfway through a route and you're like, oh, I don't know where that certain fuse is, and then the Riven collapses on you, stomps you, probably won't kill you. I certainly had 100 resilience and with this build, but you can then retreat, go back to the other room, and pick up where you last left off, because it saves your progress. If the pipe goes blue, it's saved so far. That's the difference between that and the red, where the red currents outside, they're just a hard reset. They'll just reset. You just shoot them within a certain time. It might be 8-9 seconds, whatever it is. Just tap fire your SMG as well. There's no need to do a good amount of sustained damage. They literally go down in one shot. A trace rifle was actually good at taking them, but I wanted a good SMG on just to sort of deal with ads and stuff. I know I've got mini hammer, but I wanted mini tool on. But anyways, that's the solo for the final boss for this dungeon. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
This was a clever incision by the witness. A multi-front attack. Sabotage us,